There is a specific kind of fear that we all share. It isn't the fear of the dark or the fear of what might be waiting for us in the woods. It is a much more intimate terror. It is the suspicion that the sanctuary we have built for ourselves is not actually empty. We lock our doors, we check the windows, we assume that when the lights go out, we are alone. But in May of 2008, a man living in the quiet city of Fukuoka, Japan, discovered that the feeling of being watched wasn't just paranoia, it was a warning. And he found out too late that the most dangerous things aren't trying to break into your house. They're already inside, waiting for you to fall asleep. Fukuoka is a modern, bustling coastal city, known more for its ancient temples and Hakata ramen than for unsolved mysteries. In the late 2000s, it was a place of safety and routine. For one 57-year-old resident, life was predictable. He was a single man living alone in a standard single-story residence. He had a job, he had a schedule, and he valued his privacy. But early that spring, the routine began to fracture. It started with small, almost imperceptible inconsistencies. He would come home from work and find things shifted, not stolen, just moved. A magazine left on the coffee table would be sitting on the sofa. A light he swore he turned off would be flickering in the hallway. At first he rationalized it: stress, fatigue. Maybe he was becoming forgetful in his middle age. But then the food started disappearing. It wasn't random, it was specific. Milk cartons that should have been half full were empty. Leftover rice from dinner was gone by breakfast. It was the kind of gaslighting that makes a person question their own sanity. He wasn't afraid yet, he was confused. He began to suspect a repeat burglar, someone who perhaps had a copy of his key and was coming in during the day to steal petty items. Determined to catch the intruder, he decided to take action. He didn't call the police immediately. He had no proof, just a feeling. Instead, he purchased a simple, motion-activated security camera. He set it up in the kitchen, facing the refrigerator in the living area. He checked the angles, made sure the red recording light was obscured, and then he left for work just like any other day. He expected to catch a neighbor, maybe a landlord snooping around. He had no idea what he was about to see. The following day, the man returned home. The house was silent, the air was stale. Nothing seemed out of place. He went straight to the camera, pulled the data card, and loaded it onto his computer. For the first few hours of the footage, there was nothing, just the grainy, static silence of an empty house. The sunlight shifted across the floorboards. The refrigerator hummed. Then the motion sensor triggered. But the movement didn't come from the front door. It didn't come from a window. In the corner of the frame, near the ceiling, a sliding cabinet door to a storage closet, a space barely big enough for winter bedding, began to inch open. The man watched in frozen horror as a pale hand reached out from the darkness of the cupboard. Slowly, methodically, a human figure unfolded itself from the cramped space. It wasn't a burglar in a ski mask. It was a woman. She was small, thin, with matted hair. She climbed down from the top shelf with the practiced ease of someone who had done this 100 times before. She didn't look panicked. She didn't look like she was rushing. She walked casually to the refrigerator, opened it, and drank from his milk carton. She turned on the television, muted, and watched it for a while. She used his bathroom. She walked through his living room, touching his things, existing in his space as if she owned it. Then, as the time stamp approached the hour the man usually returned from work, She cleaned up her mess. She wiped the table. She closed the milk carton. And then she climbed back up onto the counter, squeezed herself back into the storage cupboard, and slid the door shut. The man was sitting in that very room while watching the footage, and he realized, with a jolt of adrenaline that nearly stopped his heart, that she was still there, right above his head. He didn't scream. He didn't confront the cupboard. He quietly stood up, walked out of his front door, and immediately called the police from a safe distance. When the Fukuoka Prefectural Police arrived, they were skeptical. The story sounded like a delusion, but the man insisted. They entered the home with weapons drawn. They did a sweep of the ground floor. Nothing. No signs of forced entry, no broken locks. Then they looked up. The officers approached the sliding door of the top-level closet. It was a oshir, a deep Japanese closet used for futons. It was cramped, dark, and seemingly too small for an adult to hide in comfortably. When they slid the door back, they found her, curled up in the fetal position, surrounded by a makeshift nest of bedding, was Tatsuko Horikawa, a 58-year-old woman. She was squeezed into a space roughly 3 feet high. She didn't fight. She didn't try to run. She simply looked at the officers with a blank expression. When they pulled her out, they found the evidence of a life lived in shadow. She had a small stash of food wrappers. She had bottles of water. But most disturbingly, they found a small portable mattress pad. She hadn't just been there for a few hours. According to the police report, she had been living in the stranger's closet for an entire year. The details that emerged during the interrogation shifted the story from a simple trespassing case to something far more psychological and unsettling. Horikawa told the police that she had no place to live. A year prior, she had been wandering the neighborhood when the homeowner left his front door unlocked for a brief moment while taking out the trash. She slipped in unseen and found the closet. She told investigators she rarely left the closet when the man was home. She had learned his breathing patterns. She knew when he was in deep REM sleep. She would come down at night to use the restroom and shower while he slept just a few feet away. She was a ghost in the machine of his life. But here is where the story enters the Uncanny Valley. The police searched the woman's background. She wasn't a known criminal. She had no record of violent mental illness. She was just a person who had decided that the best way to survive was to become a parasite. The homeowner, understandably, was traumatized. He had spent 365 nights sleeping in that house. He had dressed in that room. He had private conversations on the phone. All the while, just above his head, eyes were watching him through the crack in the sliding door. This phenomenon has a name in Japan. It's loosely connected to the concept of hikikomori, social withdrawal, but twisted into something predatory. Since this case broke, similar incidents have been reported globally. In America, a man found a woman living in his attic who had carved peepholes into the drywall to watch his children sleep. In China, a man discovered an intruder living under his bed for a week. The scary part isn't the intrusion itself. It's the silence. We rely on noise to warn us of danger. Glass breaking, footsteps, heavy breathing. But Tatsuko Horikawa proved that a human being can be completely silent if they want to be. She proved that the proximity of another person isn't enough to detect them. You can be inches away from a stranger and feel completely alone. It forces us to reevaluate our biological instincts. We think we would know if someone was watching us. We believe in that sixth sense, that prickle on the back of the neck. But the man in Fukuoka felt nothing for a year. His instincts failed him. His biology failed him. The woman was arrested for trespassing. The case was closed. But the psychological scar left on the community and the world remained open. It challenges the very concept of home. Home is where we drop our guard. It is the one place we are not performing for the world. But if the walls have eyes, that sanctuary becomes a stage. Tonight, before you go to sleep, you will probably lock your front door. You might even check the window latch. But ask yourself this: when was the last time you checked the attic, or the crawl space, or that high shelf in the back of the closet that you haven't touched in months? The silence in your house right now, is it really empty? Or is it just holding its breath?